Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today you're checking out a brand new Stamina Templar solo PVE build. This is updated for the Elsweyr and Scalebreaker DLCs. So in general, Stamina characters are not the easiest classes to solo with, but I think I've come up with something here that's actually pretty strong and a lot of fun to play. Stamina Templars have lots and lots of AoE damage. They also have very strong defensive and healing bonuses. And then tied in with some of the sets that we've used, we actually have a very strong solo build for dungeons, veteran dungeons if you want, and world bosses as well. So if you're thinking about playing solo in the world of ESO and you have a Stamina Templar, definitely check this video out. I think you will enjoy it. As always, we'll check out the stats, the gear, the skills, champion points, and more coming up next. All right, everybody, hopping on the Stamina Templar again, this time, though, for PvE. Let's jump into the stats here. Throw in a couple of buffs here. And a potion to check out our buff stats. Usual disclaimer that I'm not fully min-maxed. You can get increased stats with gold gear and gold glyphs, as well as undaunted maxed out. Those are a couple things I still need to work on for this build. But as a baseline, you're looking at about 10k max magicka, 20k health, 30k max stamina. For our recoveries, we got about 1,000 health recovery, which is very nice. 16, almost 1,700 stamina recovery, and this is actually more like 2,000 due to one of our buffs that doesn't show on our stat sheet. And in terms of our weapon damage with our rally buff active, we're sitting at around 3k. On top of that, we're getting another 1,000 from our weapon damage enchant and another one of our sets, so about 4k total weapon damage. Weapon critical does go up with our biting jabs skill, close to 50% weapon critical, and then our resistances are quite high while being in medium armor. This is a 5 medium 2 heavy setup, sitting at about 27,000 physical and spell resistance. I'm using the Lover Mundus. Right now, you can also swap this out for the Warrior if you want to get closer to 4k weapon damage. Food is going to be the Artaeum Takeaway Broth. This just maximizes our stamina, our health, our stamina recovery, and also gives us a line of health recovery, which is very nice for the build overall, keeping us alive. Then we have Minor Berserk, all these minor buffs, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now, as far as our potions, you can actually just get away with basic stamina potions because we do have access to our major weapon damage and weapon crit buffs from our skills. So this is actually a very cheap way to run the build. You can also use the tri-stat potions. This will give you better recovery on all of your stat pools. I also like lingering health once in a while. This just gives me extra healing through the health per second there and the major vitality buff. And then as far as the race, I am a Nord right now, which is more for my PvP build. For PvE, I definitely still recommend Orc. With your Orc, you're going to get a lot more weapon damage. You also get some extra health, which is really nice for soloing in PvE. But the Nord here is not bad at all. You'll also get the extra health on the Nord. You get max stamina. You get ultimate regen, which is nice. 5 ultimate every 10 seconds. And then the rugged passive is also nice for a medium armor build. This gives you about 4,000 extra physical and spell resistance. So if you want to be tankier, look at Nord. If you want more offensive potential, check out the Orc. TLDR, just pick what you want for this build. It doesn't make a huge difference. The first set that I picked for this is going to be the Nightmare set, which actually gives very nice stats for a solo stamina build. You get physical resistance, you get max health, weapon damage on the 4-piece, and then for the 5-piece, we have a 20% chance to apply minor maim to all enemies within 8 meters, reducing their damage done by 15%. So minor maim is one of the best debuffs you can get for soloing and for actually PvE in general. Also, the fact that this is AoE means you only need to proc it once on one enemy, and then it's going to affect all the enemies around that initial enemy for 5 seconds. Also, being a Templar with our jabs, those hit a lot of times, so each jab is actually a chance to proc this, as well as some of our other melee abilities. So the uptime on this is very good, and again, it just helps you take a lot less damage, both from trash mobs, AoE packs, and from hard-hitting bosses. So it's a really nice solo set. I use this on my solo Stamina Sorcerer as well, and I really like it. Now for this, you'll want a front bar weapon. You don't need to run this on the back bar. Spindle Cleave is a named drop from the Spindle Clutch dungeon. That's where the set comes from. You can get it from either version, Spindle Clutch 1 or 2. You can run it on normal, in fact, and get these drops pretty easily. Now this is an axe. I would prefer probably a maul for the extra physical penetration, but the axe blade is not bad, especially on a single target boss fight. And I have transmuted this to infused, and there's a very good reason for that. It's because I'm using the damage shield enchantment on my front bar. So with an infused enchant with some champion point moving around, which we'll talk about later, I'm able to get a 5k damage shield every 5 seconds, and this can be refreshed every 5 seconds as well. And this goes along with one of the other damage shields we're getting from our skills. So that's 2 pieces for the weapon. We're also running the chest piece. This is a heavy armor set, by the way, so I have the reinforced chest. Divines probably would be a little bit better on this, but with the health enchant there to get our health close to 20k is very good. So that's giving us our 3rd piece, and then there's actually 2 rings which come in robust. Even though this is a heavy armor set, you can get these named rings in robust from Spindle Clutch as well. And then I have those just enchanted with weapon damage there for my 5 pieces of Nightmare. Moving right along, our next 5-piece set is going to be the Briarheart set. And when we're talking about solo, we have the damage resistance, we have the damage debuff, and the next thing we need is basically damage and healing, and Briarheart does a very good job of that. You can see we get weapon critical, max stamina, weapon critical again, and then for the 5-piece here, when you deal critical damage, you have a 10% chance to increase your weapon damage, and then your critical strikes are going to heal you for 615 health. I believe this is going to be increased by all of our healing passives that we have on the Templar as well. Now, it's not going to be active 100% of the time. You can see it's only up 10 seconds out of 15, but I find that extra passive healing in the background, going along with our damage shield that we are proccing, is going to keep our health topped off really nicely. So Briarheart is a medium armor set. You can get this from the Hrothgar DLC. You can also buy this. It's pretty common on guild traders. Divines is going to be the trait that you want there. Everything enchanted with max stamina if you can. I'm using this on the feet, legs, hands, waist, and then my neck is going to be the final piece of Briarheart there. For our monster set, Head and Shoulders, I decided to go with Slimecraw. You could do a lot of different sets here, but Slimecraw is going to give us a nice bit of weapon crit, and then we have that Minor Berserk, increasing all our damage done by 8%. That's going to be active 100% of the time on our Stamina Templar, just letting us do more damage overall. Make sure these are medium as well. Enchanted with Stamina, Divines will be your best in slot trait there. And then finally for our bow, using the bow back bar here. Now I am currently using the Maelstrom bow. That's not required for this build. You can do any old bow here on your back bar that you want. The main thing though is that you get an infused trait on your bow. That's because infused is going to help you proc that Berserker enchant, giving you over 500 weapon damage every 5 seconds, and that can proc every 5 seconds as well, giving you 100% uptime on that extra weapon damage. With the Maelstrom bow, this is just going to help our volley hit a little bit harder. All right, so we've got Nightmare, we've got Slimecraw, and then Briarheart. Those are our main sets that we're using. So I think we can jump into the skills next. We'll go ahead and show our front bar first, which is our two-handed bar. Starting off with Rearming Trap. This just does a lot of nice damage over time. And it's also going to give us access to Minor Force. Minor Force gives us 10% increased critical damage. Templars also get 10% increased crit damage from their class passives. So this is just a nice stacking effect. You definitely want that buff on any stamina build, any stamina DPS build. And this skill is just a very easy way to get access to that. Next up, I'm using Brawler. We're using Brawler not for the damage, although the AoE damage potential is pretty nice. We're using it actually for the damage shield, which is going to give us a 5k damage shield just at base. Don't even have to hit anything. You can see there. Do my AoE and I have my damage shield active now. but it also scales up, so 50% more damage shield for each enemy hit. So this, along with our hardening enchant, our damage shield enchant, very easily can get us over our health cap. So we can be 20, 25k damage shield just from doing this every 5 seconds. Very easy to do. Also, our cleave there is going to proc the nightmare set as well. So that's going to give every enemy in front of us that's hit, that's going to apply that minor maim, that 15% less damage from every enemy hit. So you definitely want to run this skill. Next up is a flex spot, and I switch this out depending on the fight. So for clearing through a dungeon, for groups, for trash packs, you want to run Repentance on your front bar. So while slotted, you get minor fortitude, minor endurance, minor intellect. That increases all your recoveries by 10%, which is actually pretty nice for soloing. But what it does is as soon as an enemy dies, you can hit Repentance and you get 3,000 health and stamina back for each corpse that's on the ground. So imagine clearing out a trash pack of like 8 mobs. 8 times 3, that's 24,000 health and 24,000 stamina back. The sustain on this build when fighting groups of enemies is incredible. You're basically unstoppable. As long as enemies are coming at you, you basically have infinite sustain if you're running Repentance. So it's very, very good to have. Now, the only downside to that, right, is if you're in a single target boss fight, there's not going to be any corpses to use. So then this skill, except for the passives here, is going to be pretty much useless. So what you want to run instead of Repentance for a single target fight is you want to run Power of the Light. So Power of the Light gives you a bit of physical damage up front, but it also reduces your target's resistance. It applies minor breach. So that's 1320 less physical resistance on your enemy, making them take more damage. And then it also copies all the damage that you do for 6 seconds and puts it out as a burst damage every 6 seconds. So this is going to be ideal for boss fights. Again, it reduces their armor, gives you an extra damage source, and it's super cheap. You also get ultimate back for casting this through our passives, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this is a very good single target ability, but we're going to put Repentance back on for AoE. And then our main spammable here is Biting Jabs. So Biting Jabs does a lot of very good single target and AoE damage. Does a bit of a snare there. But you also get Major Savagery, which is really important on this build. This increases your weapon critical by 10% for about 8 seconds there. Very good. We also get minor protection from using Biting Jabs. And the uptime on that buff is actually going up in the Scalebreaker DLC. So you're going to have basically 100% uptime on minor protection as well as having your minor maim debuff on your enemies. Just remember, you'll always want to open with your Brawler to proc that damage shield, and then you go in underneath with sweeps to be your main damage source there. Next up is Rally. This is giving us our Major Brutality buff. You are getting a very nice heal over time from Rally right now in the Elsweyr chapter. But as things are looking now, this might actually get nerfed. The heal over time might go away. It does give a nice burst heal though, so that is very nice in boss fights where you're blocking, where you're taking a really hard attack that might bring your health down to like 50%. Just popping that Rally heal is really nice. But I'm not sure if I'm going to run this in Scalebreaker. I might actually swap out Vigor here. We won't have the burst heal, but we'll have a really nice heal over time with Vigor, so I'm just going to wait and see on that one. And for the ultimate, you can run multiple things here. I do like Empowering Sweep because of how cheap it is. It's just a very cheap source of damage, and it gives us Empower, which actually makes all of our light attacks hit 40% harder, so that's not bad. But you can also put Dawnbreaker here. Either version I think would be good. Dawnbreaker of Smiting will be good for AoE and trash packs. And then the other version, Flawless Dawnbreaker, is going to give you more weapon damage. Backbar now is our bow, and we're going to use Poison Injection for our single target damage over time. This does very good upfront damage as well as dot damage. Increases as the enemy's health gets lower. You know it, you love it. You got to use it on a stam DPS. And then Endless Hail as well. The damage here is going to be changed a bit in the Scalebreaker DLC. This is not going to be ticking every half second anymore. It's getting changed to tick every 1 second. But keep in mind, one of the other reasons that you use Endless Hail is it also is a very easy way to proc your back bar glyph. And with that Berserker enchant, we're getting, like I said, 500 weapon damage every 5 seconds just for having this active. So you still want to use this no matter what. Razor Caltrops, this is getting some interesting changes in the Scalebreaker DLC. From what I've seen, this is going to change to not have the upfront damage, but instead it's going to apply Major Fracture. And if you're familiar with the Stamina Templar, you understand that we don't have any class source of Major Fracture, which when this gets Major Fracture next patch is going to increase the damage of this build quite a bit. So I am actually looking forward to that as just a really easy way to apply AoE Major Fracture. I think it's going to make the build even stronger when that switch happens, but for now it's just a good source of AoE damage. Up next is Ritual of Retribution, and this is a Magicka skill, but it's actually been changed recently. Here you can see the last line. It now scales with our highest offensive stats. So it is going to scale off stamina and weapon damage, which is actually pretty cool. It's giving us an AoE heal and an AoE damage over time. It removes negative effects from us as well, but then also through our passives, when I pop this here, if you see that little green buff on the left, that's giving us 8% extra healing done. That means all of our healing, either from the ritual or from rally or from our Briarheart, all of those are getting buffed by 8%. So this is a super helpful just AoE to have down on the ground. It's a buff, it's a heal, it's a damage source. It's really good. Not to mention it uses Magicka instead of stamina. So it actually helps with our sustain a little bit since it's not taking away from our main resource. It's really good. And then our armor buff on the back bar as well as our sustain buff is going to be Restoring Focus. This gives us Major Ward and Major Resolve. When you're standing in the rune, you get 50% extra resistance. So you want to make sure that you are just standing in this all the time. And then you also get that really nice stamina recovery. It doesn't show up on your stat sheet, but it is there. That's about equivalent to 480 stamina recovery, which is really strong. Back bar, I'm currently using Remembrance, but you can do the Bow Ultimate here if you want for some extra damage, especially on a single target boss. That will be very nice. But Remembrance is just kind of an emergency heal. This gives us a very strong heal for 4 seconds. We also get Major Protection for 10 seconds. I talked about this last time in the PvP build, but you can actually cast this ultimate and then immediately block cancel it and have 10 seconds of Major Protection active while you are going on the offensive. So sometimes I will do that if I'm going to absorb a lot of damage in a few seconds, while I'm setting up my buffs and everything, and I'm maybe pulling a big group of enemies. I might just cast that for the Major Protection for 10 seconds, cancel it, and then, bar swap, and then go on the offensive. So I have that defensive buff active while I get everything set up. It's definitely a nice way to absorb some damage early on in a fight. So then, in terms of passives, you'll definitely want all of your class passives here very strong on the Templar class. We have Piercing Spear. This increases our crit damage again by 10%. That's on top of the minor force that we're getting from Trap Beast. Spear Wall, we talked about this as well. We get minor protection for 3 seconds. This is going to get buffed up to 6 seconds in the Scalebreaker DLC, which is super strong. Burning Light, this can proc and basically do extra physical damage. Can happen every half second, but that's only off of AEDRIC Spear ability, so basically our jabs and our ultimate there if you're using that. Then Balance Warrior, we get a little bit of extra weapon damage and spell resistance. That's nice because it balances off with the extra physical resistance that we get from running the Nightmare set. So during Raise, this will buff the Nova Ultimate. I forgot to mention you can run Nova on this build for a little bit extra protection. That is nice. Prism, we talked about this with Power of the Light. You'll get 3 Ultimate for every Power of the Light that you cast, basically every 6 seconds. So that is nice for a longer boss fight. Illuminate, we don't really use this solo. This is more of a Magicka Templar passive. Restoring Spirit, though, gives us a nice cost reduction of Magicka, Stamina, and Ultimate abilities by 4%. Very good. And then your healing passives are strong as well. This increases Healing effects from our ritual by 12%. Sacred Ground, this is that minor mending buff that we talked about off the ritual. You can see that little green buff show up. That's 8% extra healing done. That counts for all healing, not just on the ritual, so that's very good. Lightweaver just gives us some passive spell and physical resistance off that ultimate. And then Master Ritualist, you can actually not put this on if you want to save 2 points. This really doesn't help you if you're soloing. Then you'll obviously want all of your two-handed passives here, as well as all of your bow passives. Medium armor, I would recommend grabbing all of these except for sneak. Unless you like sneaking, then you can obviously do that. Heavy armor passives are good as well. If you're running 1 or 2 pieces of heavy, you'll get some extra stats from the first 3 here. You actually don't need the last 2. These are only with 5 pieces or more. So you want Resolve, Constitution, and Juggernaut. Fighters Guild, even if you're not using Dawnbreaker, you can get some ultimate back for the Slayer passive, so you'll want to get at least 3 of these. If you are using Dawnbreaker, though, you'll want to grab the other passives as well. Undaunted, if you're maxed here, make sure you grab those for the extra resources. And then always grab your class skills, which we talked about. And then in the alchemy skill line, you want to grab medicinal use, just to make those potions last a little bit longer. All right, in terms of champion points next, in the green tree here, got 23 into Warlord, 56 in Tenacity. You can throw in some heavy attacks on your two-hander just for extra sustain. 37 into Healthy, that's going to increase our health recovery. 100 into Mooncalf for the increased stamina recovery. 31 into Shadow Ward for the extra block cost reduction. 23 into Tumbling, reduces the cost of roll dodge. 23 into Blessed. 23 into Master at Arms. 72 into Thaumaturge, that's because the majority of our abilities are damage over time. 28 into Precise Strikes. 68 into Piercing. 56 into Mighty. In the red tree, 51 into Ironclad. Had just 1 left over here for Medium Armor Focus. 56 Hardy and Elemental Defender, 26 into Thick Skinned, 32 into Quick Recovery, and then 48 went into Bastion. This is increasing our damage shield glyph. This doesn't increase the damage shield on Brawler itself, that scales with weapon damage, but this does increase your damage shield glyph by about 1,000 damage on that actually by just putting a few points into there. So it's really nice if you're using the hardening enchant. If not, you can put those points into somewhere else. So then I just want to fight a couple mobs here to show you generally how all the buffs and debuffs work together. So I just have a trash pack here in, what dungeon is this? Where am I? Elden Hollow, Veteran, okay. So first thing you'll want to do is as you approach, put down your 2 buffs. That's your Rune and your Ritual. Once those are down, you're going to drop your Volley, your Caltrops, and then Bar Swap. From there, we're going to put down a Trap to get that Minor Force going. Make sure we hit our Brawler, and you'll see a huge damage shield proc here. And then just basically go into Biting Jab spam. If anything dies, you can do Repentance, and then just bar swap and do it all over again. So let's see how it looks. I'm going to make sure I'm very close, that way they're in my ritual. You can block here if you want while you're casting. Bar swap, there's the trap, and you can see my Brawler gave me 100% shield there. Drop my ultimate. And then you can see I'm losing a bit of stamina. So before I bar swap, just gonna grab all those corpses and I'm back to full. Rinse, repeat. And I'm not gonna bother with Brawler because they're dead. And then you can always grab more stamina from the corpses. And that's how you do it. All right, everybody, that's gonna wrap up the Solo Templar PVE build. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you crush that like button. and leave a comment below. If you're brand new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well with your notifications turned on. That way you'll know as soon as a new video comes out. I do build videos, I do guides, I do patch note reviews and commentaries on the Elder Scrolls Online with new videos every week. So I very much appreciate you checking me out. I'm going to put a bit of a extended boss battle here at the end. This is Veteran Fungal Grotto, which is a very basic, very simple dungeon. If you ever want to try veteran level content, I definitely recommend you start there and just see how your build performs. The main thing with this boss is just making sure you block the heavy attack and then having some way to absorb that damage, like either a damage shield or very high health, and then making sure that you just heal up as soon as that heavy attack comes in. So as always, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you around in the next video.
By the ebony blade, this is it. We found the shrine.